Martian Toys and the Mothership Toy Gallery have descended upon my life once again, but instead of creating custom toys like they've had me do in the past, this time they want to deck the halls. Literally, for an upcoming gallery show. So we're being tasked with creating a crazy custom skateboard, and to do that we're going to use rattle cans, acrylic paints, and epoxy resin to add some eye-popping effects. And as a bonus, we're also going to customize an oversized playing card, skate deck, deck of cards. You see what they did there. So stick around because we're gonna flaunt our big deck energy today on Cat Leapin's Art. So Martian sent a blank deck and a 5x7 playing card encased in fancy schmancy acrylic to my art studio for me to begin customizing. And as soon as I finish, I'll ship them back to Philly to be displayed as part of a group show with several of my fellow Chicago artists at the Mothership Toy Gallery. And with my deadline fast approaching, we need to cut the chit-chat and get to work. To start this off, we're going to be using a standard maple popsicle style deck blank. Now this particular deck arrived with a glossy varnish that we're going to have to remove in order for our primer and our paint to adhere. So let's do that. So I bopped out to the local hardware store and I picked up sandpaper in a couple of different grades, 220 grit and 400 grit. We'll start by using 220 grit to remove the varnish and then switch to 400 for a final pass before priming. And when we do this, there is going to be a little bit of varnish-laden sawdust, so feel free to wear safety gloves, glasses, and a mask. All right, let's sand. We're going to apply painter's tape to the back side of the deck so that later the epoxy doesn't drip through and dimple where the holes are located. And I'm also going to use the tape to cover the underside edges of the board so that we'll be able to use a heat gun and cleanly peel away any epoxy drips for a clean, finished look. Once it's dried, if your primer has any deep brush marks or other imperfections, feel free to lightly sand the primed surface. And don't forget to use a tack cloth to remove any dust before applying your first layer of paint. Otherwise, it might not adhere evenly. Now, we're gonna move forward with spray painting our gradient background. I don't know about you guys, but I'm really liking the way that those colors are working together in that gradient background. I mean, this could be a really pretty deck just as it is, but we're gonna be part of an art show, so we need to come up with a wild design that's really gonna wow the folks at the art gallery. So let's start sketching. As our first step, we're going to begin by using Procreate on our iPad to work out the design and make color selections before we get to painting. Instead of just sketching with reckless abandon, I download a template and set my artboard to the exact dimensions of a standard skateboard deck because I want to make sure that my concept is going to fit and fill that tall, skinny shape. And when setting the resolution for your project file, I always recommend creating high-res artwork, like at least 300 dpi, so you're able to create reproductions like prints, stickers, t-shirts, and more from that same file later on. All right, now that we've got that design all worked out, let me show you how we transfer our digital sketch onto our physical deck. Now, if you're a Cat Leapin's Art mega fan, then you know that I really like using a projector to speed up this next part of the process. If you're just a little bit old school like I am, think of using your projector just like you would an enlarger in a photo darkroom. It's great for scaling up your small sketches onto larger items like canvases, murals, and in this case, a skate deck. And as I always say, you've created the artwork once. Why freehand it again? Now everyone say it with me. It's not cheating. It's smart. Yay! Now we're going to brush on some matte medium to the entire surface of this deck. Through use and trial and error, just over time, I've found out that acrylics and spray paint kind of act like oil and water with one another. So we're going to be using the matte medium to give your acrylic paint something to grip on and stick to. So while I go ahead and do this, let's hear a word from this video's sponsor. I need something to keep my creative juices flowing while I'm working long hours and wicked late nights. As we all know, if you miss your deadline, it's off with your head. Okay, that might be a little over the top, but if you can relate, then it's high time that you taste sustainable, award-winning specialty coffees from small Mexican producers through the Killer Coffee Company. Killer Coffee is a woman and veteran-owned independent coffee brand for doers and makers, go-getters and risk-takers, driven by passion, love of nature, and the satisfaction of getting done. I've been drinking the 4 sample-sized coffees included in their Killer Coffee box from Oaxaca, Chiapas, Veracruz, and Guerrero. Not only is the artwork rad, its flavor is funky and fruity and awakens my taste buds from the dead. And remember, the holidays are creeping up on us. The Killer Coffee box is the perfect and easy gift for all the coffee lovers on your list. And for all of my viewers, when you visit killercoffeebeans.com and enter coupon code SKOPON, you'll receive a 15% discount on all of their products, including this sample box. Much love to Killer Coffee for sponsoring this video, and now that we're fully caffeinated, let's get back to making some rockin' art. We're going to be using our digital sketches roadmap to help us as we begin painting. We already defined our palette in Procreate, so all we have to do is select or mix our paint colors to match. And since the background gradient that we painted feels so good, I'm going to let it really sing by using a super limited color palette for the foreground imagery. Just black and white. Before you get all huffy about the monochromatic palette, hang with me here because there's going to be some special effects that you're not going to want to miss. Now it's time to paint our foreground imagery. Hey, brushes! I need my brushes. Paint, do you have the... Who's got my paint? Come on, bring the paint. I wanted to share a few of my behind-the-scenes thoughts. Lately, I've become really inspired by automotive car painting techniques and finishes, and you might see these influences coming through in some of the work that I'm doing. I don't have a spray booth, and my line work is probably never going to be as good as some of the pinstrippers that I've seen on TV and on social media, but a girl can always dream and practice, practice, practice. If you guys have any lining or pinstriping tips and tricks for me, I'd love for you to leave me a note in the comments. Now, let's get our crispy black outlines on this deck. I'm really liking how this deck is turning out so far, and now it's time to get to those special effects that I was talking about earlier. So let's do that. Before we get to mixing our epoxy, we have a little bit of prep work to do. We need to gather up all of our supplies: silicone mats and stir sticks that make for easy cleanup, spreader and scraper tools, mixing cups with measuring marks, powder pigments, and of course, safety gear. As you guys know, for me, it is always safety first. I highly recommend wearing gloves and using a respirator mask, especially if you're at all allergic to epoxy resin and its fumes. Today, we're gonna be using Maker Epoxy, a 2-part epoxy resin from Total Boat. Part A is the resin part of the mix, and Part B is the hardener. Now, one of my favorite parts about Maker Epoxy is that it's crystal clear, so it makes it ideal for adding mix-ins like powders, pigments, alcohol inks, and more to create some really cool eye-catching effects. So right now, I'm going to be adding some holographic glitter to select parts of my board, specifically the irises of all of the eyes. I think this is going to make the board really pop. Let these select areas of varnish set up overnight, and tomorrow I'm going to come back and flood the whole thing with a clear epoxy pour. Alright, I just checked it out and our varnish is semi-cured and looking good. Now this means that it hasn't completely cured, but it also means that it won't bleed into the next layer of epoxy that I'm about to pour on top of it. So let's measure out some more Maker Epoxy in our good old 1-to-1 ratio. Gently stir the 2 parts together and get ready for that final, oh so satisfying epoxy pour. Now, depending on the temperature and humidity of your workspace, you're gonna wanna look at the labeling on your Maker Epoxy packaging to make sure that you're allotting enough time for everything to cure properly. It's been a few days and the resin has completely cured. This means that it doesn't feel tacky and you're not able to leave any fingerprints. And now you have the option of drilling out your deck holes in order to use hanging hardware, just like this type that you can buy on Amazon. But this time I'm going to drill out my holes because they need to hang the deck in the gallery for the art show. Okay, holy moly, guess what? It's finally time to feast our eyes on this skate deck. Oh wait, hold up, just 1 minute. Before we do that, we need to work on the playing card. I almost forgot. I know you didn't though. Okay, now is the time to take a look at the finished skate deck and the playing card. Whew, finally, right? If you like these two pieces, they're going to be available on the MARTIAN Toys website when the show opens on November 26th. If you feel like you learned something today, please don't hesitate to give me a super thanks. Any little bit that you can give goes toward me making art in these videos, so super thanks to you guys. And I'd like to send out a special thanks to Killer Coffee for helping me to make videos like this one possible. And as always, thanks for watching Kat Liepin's Art. And if you like this video, try checking this one out.